We've got match number 3 coming right up for you guys here, and we've got blitzchung versus BloodTrail coming right up, and it's blitzchung currently on a 3-7 score, and BloodTrail on a 5-5 score. So BloodTrail just straight down the middle in terms of win-losses, which is, at least for me, a 50% win rate in this field is good.
Yeah,
it's a decent run. Whereas blitzchung, I feel like his results do not reflect him as a player at all, or not even close. I feel like he should be much higher in terms of how I've seen him play, but I feel his predictability is a big downfall. He's multiple times said, I love Hunter, I love playing aggro decks,
right,
and then he's just been stomped by people who know he's going up against him and have brought something that can beat Hunter. This week, though, a little bit different. Is this going to be Bomb Warrior Mirror? And blitzchung finally, taking a step away from maybe his comfort zone and saying, I'm going to bring this, I just think it's good and a bit different.
Yeah, I think this is a very good approach for blitzchung, because we've seen from a lot of players who have been sticking with their primary style of gameplay. It hasn't worked out because they've become predictable. Primary example from the European region is Swids, I believe, taking Bomb Warrior in his first 2 weeks, going 0-4, and then switching over to Rogue and doing a lot better because he's known as a control player, a very strong control player, switches it up and does a lot better. And I think it's a good recognition from blitzchung that aggro is not that strong right now, and that's his biggest strong suit. So he needs to try and switch away from that completely rather than trying to make it work. Yeah. I mean, you could argue that Bomb Warrior is somewhat of an aggro deck.
I play it like aggro. But let's take a look at the list, though. BloodTrail's coming up first, I believe. But yeah, I love a good core Chron Elite in my Bomb Warrior list. Just push that extra damage. But let's take a look at this one. There is the Spellbreaker in there, which I do like, throwing a silence in this specialist format, as we can hear the players just get into a practice game, I'm sure. But I like the Spellbreaker overall, just because you're not 100% sure what you're going to be coming up against. So having just one in there, it's not a bad card in general. Most decks have targets that Spellbreaker's good against, and sometimes you just play it on curve like an Omega Devastator.
Yeah, I think Spellbreaker is pretty good at the moment. Primarily, I think the reason we've seen it come into play more is Snip Snap becoming very pretty ubiquitous actually across the entire meta. I mean, pretty much. Orange tweeted out earlier saying that Snip Snap is more mandatory than Ziliax is in pretty much, you should just play it in every deck, he believes. I'm not sure if I totally agree, but I am obviously not going to deny the power level that that card has. And against blitzchung's deck, which we can take a look at now, that Spellbreaker for BloodTrail might be his saving grace, because I think while it's obviously a super close matchup, these deck lists are very similar, I would give the slight advantage to blitzchung in this matchup. I think double Omega Assembly will help him out greatly. Even double Eternium Rover, being able to get on the board early on and seize tempo, I think it's pretty underrated.
Yeah, I think there's just some kind of, I'm not sure what the word I want to use, but amusing that blitzchung has built Bomb Warrior in a very anti-aggro fashion, in that he has 4 1-drops, the double Town Crier in there as well, which some people debate a lot about, as well as a weapons project. As an aggro player himself, he's like, I will not lose to another aggro player, but he has run into this Bomb Warrior, so it's going to be, I don't know, I know there's a lot of probably already in chat, people, oh, Bomb Warrior, boring. I actually think, as long as it's not the only matchup we see, I think Bomb Warrior matchups can actually be pretty sweet, and I've seen some games, and we've seen a lot of games in the Asia-Pacific region that have gone very, very back and forth, and it is very decision heavy. It's gone back and forth in a way that the players have determined, and not just, oh, well, they happen to draw this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I've likened it to the matchups to the food pyramid that you get in terms of what you're supposed to eat. Like Rogue and Mage are like your carbohydrates, your fruit and veg. Like, you need a lot of them. Bomb Warrior mirrors are like your sweets. Like you're only like a little bit is fine, but you don't want too much, or well, you don't get fat, but your teeth get
will rot.
Yeah, exactly. You don't enjoy it, I guess, would be the good comparison with
Catchy line, I remember that one.
Yeah, because I agree. I think that there's a lot going on in this matchup that can make it very interesting, and the players who understand the matchup better will actually generally come across on top, which is not always the case in some of the quicker matchups, because you have so much time for the decisions you're making to be realized. But it can take a little bit of a while to get going.
It can. I think what I enjoy the most here is the players deciding whose role is whose, right? And then the role reversal sometimes of who's being the more aggressor, who's being more of the defender. And that can change very quickly in this matchup as well, because if someone gains the board and like hits face once, that one just wave of damage often makes a big difference when you start applying the bombs that are in the deck and so on. And with both players not running Elysiana in their primary lists, it means that there is no bomb defusal that's going to happen. That the only way the bombs can be removed is if the hand is full, but that's not often what you want to do unless you're exactly up against the wall and it could kill you.
And it says a lot about the matchup, as we've been talking about how it should be played. That I believe the only card held by both players was Blastmaster Boom.
Yep.
You hold on to that because it allows you to kill your opponent, if not guaranteed on when you play it, if you get the full 6 boom bots. But it puts you in such a good position, because if it's not removal, it's face damage, which is fantastic to put you in a position where, like you said, when it's not going to fatigue, you just want to push them out the game with aggression early on.
And it's also, as long as you're not playing it as a war golem, of course, it's always guaranteed damage, because at worst, the boom bots go off. And although I said you can play the match quite aggressively, the warriors don't often have a very wide board. They normally have 1 to 2, 3 most minions any given time, and the boom bots do quite well versus that ore push, as you said, more damage to face. So it's going to be pretty interesting already. Already the snip snap going down on curve, as opposed to getting some insane sort of, you know, triple snip snap value. What do you make of that?
I think it's reasonable to throw it down here. It gave him some very good trades, and like that is, I believe, the key to the matchup is tempo. At all points of the game, whether it be mid, late, or early game, you want to make sure that you are staying ahead on board, because then, like we saw with Shaxi in the previous game, even though it was against the Rogue, that game never even felt close to being close, because he tempoed out. He stayed ahead on board, which means he can use his removal cards with all the rush minions and the dynamatic and such to push damage to face with his other minions while he removes with the rush minions from his hand. And I think that's you know, good understanding from both of these players that, you know, obviously Snip Snap could be used for a huge amount of value later on, but what is more likely to be good is if BloodTrail seizes tempo early on, goes for a big Augmented Elec Clockwork Goblin play, and then coins Blastmaster Boom on 6.
And now we see the very, very common interaction of Dynamatic versus Militia Commander. They not only go one man after the other one, but also it's one of the few minions you can guarantee kill in the mirror match. So blitzchung definitely getting the better end of the stick, mainly because his Dynamatic cannot be Dynamaticked. If that's even how you'd say that. But it means that he just keeps a minion on board most of the time, unless it's a second Militia Commander to then take it down.
And even just going Ziliak's magnetized onto this the Dynamatic, even though it's obviously not gaining him any life, just as a bit of extra charge damage, if you will, when magnetized on.
Still taking life from your opponent, which is, you know, pretty
the
big
next
deal.
best thing. Actually better. I'd rather take life away than gain life. In Hearthstone.
I was like, wow, this just got dark real quick. I would rather be the taker of life than the giver. Okay.
Yes, I would. In the tavern.
Okay. These pauses are killing me. Okay, well, let's hopefully get back to the game and cheer things up a little bit, because I just feel bad about life now. And slightly worried for my own. Because Darek is only staying one wall away from me, which means progressively more afraid for my life going forward. But anyway, let's focus on the good things for now. blitzchung does have that Elec, but not much else to go with it now.
Yeah. He held onto the Blastmaster Boom, but did not find the bomb cards to go with it. So what's the next best thing? What's the follow-up that he can go for instead of Blastmaster Boom on 7? The answer of which seems to be Elec Devastator. It puts a decent amount of pressure on board.
If the armor wasn't there, I have seen Blastmaster Booms just played as a 7/7, but the hero power into Shield Slam is just too easy.
Well, it's going into, from where blitzchung is sat, it's going into not only Blastmaster Boom turn, but Dr. Boom Mad Genius turn, to which he needs to think, how do I, if BloodTrail does want to go for that, which he did hold onto a card, which he hasn't played so far, I think it has an equal chance of being either Blastmaster Boom or Dr. Boom Mad Genius. If it's the hero card, he wants to put on as much pressure as possible to punish BloodTrail for not making a tempo play, which I think again comes in the form of Devastator Elec.
Oh, he's just going to armor up, take it a little bit slower. And also as well, BloodTrail will get value from this boom because there are, I believe, 2 bombs in blitzchung's deck, which means that's going to be 4 boom bombs.
Yeah, perfectly good enough there. He obviously could have waited a turn with the Wrench Caliber, but it didn't do anything on the board.
Yeah, that's the. If Wrench Caliber killed a minion, then yes, maybe, but just not worth it. It's going to line up pretty nice, though. And to be honest, might just explain why the Elec wasn't played. Because if Blastmaster comes down, you've got to kill anyway, and what does the Elite do much now versus potentially shuffling more bombs later?
Fair. That's fair. I guess it soaks up damage that doesn't go face, but I guess he would rather tank the damage to the face. It's not as strict as it would always seem, because your first instinct would be, obviously you gain armor, you want to tank the damage to your face, but it can be a lot of damage that you start to tank, which gets pretty scary.
It's the payoff, right? Is the damage to the face greater or less than the damage of potentially shuffling more bombs into your opponent that can then maybe go off? Very difficult to work it out.
And obviously you have to bear in mind that from where blitzchung was sat, the play was not always Dr. Boom Blastmaster Boom. It could have been Dr. Boom Mad Genius. It could have been neither of those two cards, against which playing the Elite probably would have been better.
A warrior could have not had a version of Boom on 7.
Crazy as it sounds.
I know it's wild, but it happens.
It's been
sometimes.
known to happen. Yeah.
But now this is where things start to get a little bit tricky, because Wrench Caliber cleans this Devastator up very nicely, but also whacks him for 7 in his own face. So you can start to see the health, although fairly even right now, a few more swings like that, and the health difference is going to start to stack up a little bit.
That belongs in a museum.
Getting the draw now is blitzchung, which is pretty important, and finding Dr. Boom Mad Genius is huge. That's absolutely what he wanted to find, and even holding on to the Omega Assembly, for all this time. I think he's not necessarily as obvious again as it would seem. You very often do just turbo out the assembly a little bit earlier on to get that tempo that we keep talking about. But it's going to work out nicely for him here, because he's in a very reasonable board position, and the extra value I think will help blitzchung a lot, in addition to the rush they will get after he plays Dr. Boom Mad Genius.
Yeah, it's an interesting turn here, actually, because he can play Dr. Boom, and if he does, I'm guessing he's going to shield some.
He just sees what he gets, right? I mean, I was looking at the assembly, right?
Well, you'd always play the assembly first, wouldn't you? Because you can always Dr. Boom Hero Power and assembly.
Guess so.
Okay. Not game breaking, but I think because is there a small chance you'd assembly and play something instead
I'm
of
trying
Boom,
to think, is there anything he would play over Blastmaster?
Because you can always hero power every single time anyway, if you decide not to use an assembly minion.
I guess maybe that was a
small mechanic.
I mean, yeah. But I think like even Bulldozer or whatever on 9 mana, I don't think would have persuaded him to not play Blastmaster Boom.
But now the game really is going to open up, because blitzchung having Rush and BloodTrail not, although Rush isn't charged, it almost is a lot of the time, because your minions that clear the minions open up space for your other minions to do more damage, which it's not strictly charged, but it gives you opportunity to deal more damage to face, and gives you high advantage in the matchup.
Right, it's not only that, it's the fact that tempo gains you damage to your opponent's face, and tempo also gains you value, because you get to value trade your opponent, which ends up getting you more worth out of the stats that you're putting into play, even if you're playing the same amount of cards.
And speaking of value and stats, just so you guys know, just in case you didn't, the Boom Reaver didn't pull a minion from the deck. The Goblin is a creation, so there is still the Goblin in the deck. It's not -1 bomb generation. It's just a new 3/3 that was made.
I got that wrong 3 times in my starting week of Grandmasters.
Oh, really?
3 times.
In one game?
I'm in. No, yeah. Well, no, in one day. In one day. I messed up and I was like.
Well, you'll never get it wrong again.
Exactly.
You'll never get it wrong again.
So it's kind of a shame that blitzchung is down 1 Clockwork Goblin here, because he'd really like to get extra bomb shots.
Derek. Look, being stupid is fine. Staying stupid is not.
It's exactly what a stupid person would say.
Ooh. Those
it's
sick
not actually,
burns.
but
Okay, well, Spellbreaker could get rid of this taunt, but it's just a weird amount of health to deal with, isn't it? 6 on the Wally guy.
Yes.
Just a weapon. Shuffle a couple more bombs in, saving the Spellbreaker. There are probably better targets for Spellbreaker, but the weird thing about playing or holding Spellbreaker, not that that was a great target anyway, is that there might also be no targets for Spellbreaker. It's such a weird card in this matchup.
I think, you know, his BloodTrail's best shot is to try and do everything he can to keep tempo for the moment, and then just pray that he gets some value, which is not necessarily actually that likely, because he's already played Snip Snap, which could use up most of his mana. He only has 1 Omega Assembly, And outside of that, Blastmaster Boom, Dr. Boom Mad Genius is by far his best outcome.
Right.
Like, I mean, he needs Dr. Boom, right? I think to have much of a chance here, it's pretty crucial that he finds that.
And this is, again, one of the weird points where the matchup can swing very rapidly is BloodTrail played Blastmaster Boom with bombs. blitzchung is by far winning on health and in cards,
yes,
and still has Blastmaster Boom. So it means that blitzchung has an extra push that BloodTrail does not, mainly off the back of him drawing the other Boom.
Yeah. And I think, you know, obviously finding the other Dr. Boom helped blitzchung a lot here. It put him at a really pretty distinct advantage. But it's also the deck construction that he's gone for here that I think helped him a lot, putting in 2 Omega Assemblies. That first assembly he found has refilled his hand massively. Like, that board he put down was purely Omega Assembly minions, which is huge.
Yeah, you just got to look at that one Boom Reaver is massive. Even if it pulls a 3/3, that's 2 minions for 1 card that you generated. So, and one of them's a huge minion that needs an answer. And Bomb Warrior, at least built in the ways they are currently built here, do not do great of just spot removal. Right? They, you know, outside of being on 10 mana with a Devastator, you don't really just kill something that easily because it's not really an executes that often.
Super interesting play here from blitzchung. I was about to praise him for pressing the hero power button when the alternative was Elec Wrench Caliber, which I thought was very tempting. I anticipated him to play the Wrench Caliber that turn and then go Elec, swing, Blastmaster Boom next turn. He didn't go for that. Instead, he's throwing down the Elec to try and get, I guess, maximum value with this Wrench Caliber.
Or just to temper him out. Played his Harrison, though? No, I think blitzchung played his Harrison.
Yes, to draw.
Yeah, so he knows there's a Harrison Jones sticking around.
That's fair. That's fair.
And now blitzchung can start to shuffle in a lot of bombs if he wants to play the other Elec.
Would that be 3 right now, and then the potential of more next turn? That's pretty nuts.
And also, even now, you just add on the Elec's potentially worth 6, the one that's already on the board, damage-wise, because it was going to hit now, and then it was probably going to take a swing next turn, and it's like, all this damage is starting to add up quite a lot now.
However, on the other side of the board, the thing we didn't even talk about that is huge for BloodTrail is he found the Dr. Boom. He needed that to be able to wrestle back this tempo, and finding straight away the delivery drone is very, very important to pull him back in terms of resources as well as tempo. So is that.
The key now is, though, blitzchung just has enough bombs with that one swing. The Blastmaster Boom is live next turn for its full value, and the Boombots have Rush. Which means even if this is cleaned up, blitzchung could just go, okay, again, and just pile tons of pressure.
I'm trying to think, could that ever have gone wrong for BloodTrail there if the Dynamatic had left them both exactly on 1? He should have swung
was
first,
not looking, if I'm completely honest.
Either way, I think this is fine. He could have cleared it up with the rush and the swing every time, either way. Wow, just not playing the Harrison this turn at all. I mean, I guess he always wanted to press the hero power button. That was pretty much mandatory on this turn.
Oh.
Close turn, close turn.
Get those bombs in the deck.
Yeah, this is pretty nuts. And I guess, you know, the credit to BloodTrail, because if he had gone for the Harrison instead of clearing up the Elex, this double Clockwork Goblin would have been just pretty much game over at that point. That would have been way too many bombs for BloodTrail to ever come back.
blitzchung just taking his time. Like I said, his Blastmaster Boom is live, but my question really is, like, does he even need it at this second? I guess.
Why not?
I guess he could, because
how does it get better?
Because he -1 bomb this turn because of the harvester.
Wow. Yeah.
It's not a massive deal, but it's he's just gonna go for it. Okay.
I think I prefer just getting it down. Like the sooner you play it, the less likely BloodTrail is to have the answer, I guess, to this. I don't know what that would be exactly, because Brawl is not fantastic against this. He still takes a huge amount of damage.
Right.
But if he doesn't have the answer to it, you just win, right? Like, he has to Brawl this, even though it's not that good. I mean, it's still pretty good. It's clearing up a lot of stuff from blitzchung. It does, however, mean that if blitzchung gets any kind of decent RNG on these bombs, BloodTrail is going to be very, very close to dying. And oh my god, did he get it?
Yeah, that looks like a reasonable sum of damage.
And now with still 4 bombs in the deck, I believe, as it currently stands for blitzchung, with a triple swing on one of the ranged calibers and then a regular swing on the other one. He could shuffle 2 more, I believe, bring it up to 6 as a grand total, which means BloodTrail is going to be very hard-pressed to come back.
And the hero power won't matter right now, but still it pushes him ever closer. It means that he could get the deal 1 hero power the turn after and put them to a multiple of 5.
blitzchung, I think, is not quite at the position where it was correct to do so, but I think he's getting close to the point where he could stop playing minions to play around Ziliax. Like, if BloodTrail was at 5, I think it would be much more reasonable to just go for the out of your opponent drawing a bomb. But I think this is fine this way.
It's almost a 50-50 chance of drawing 1 that turn. Like, that's
pretty nuts.
And like I said, there's the problem now is BloodTrail has to win or get a lot of health and have these bombs go off 1 by 1 and not chain for him to win, because this is going to be a huge heal, which is good for BloodTrail, of course. But as I mentioned, there are no Elysianas here, so the bombs aren't getting wiped. They are going off. You just have to kind of deal with them the best way you can about how they're going off.
And the second Omega Assembly for blitzchung, which he put in his deck and BloodTrail did not, again worth pointing out, is insane here. This, oh my god, this puts him from a reasonable position to a fantastic position.
And look at the follow-up as well, just War Gear. Steel Rager, yes, not fantastic, but it's just another minion you can actually play.
I love blitzchung getting the value when he can out of his hero powers as well. I think that's absolutely the way he should be going about it. As double bomb for BloodTrail means 1 more would just close out the game as blitzchung
boom,
manages to take the win.
Yeah, game number 1 over, and it's crazy, isn't it? Because BloodTrail looked pretty good for a good chunk of that game. He got the Blastmaster Boom down. He applied some pressure, but I really think how easily Boom was cleaned up, and the bombs were, yes, the boom bots went off, but not to a crippling degree. And then just the pickup of Boom for blitzchung, and then BloodTrail just not really doing anything after that was a big deal. There was no follow-up from BloodTrail after the Blastmaster Boom.
Yeah, he just didn't have the value, I think. And we talk about this matchup being a lot about tempo. Obviously, you need the cards to put tempo on the board,
yes,
right? Like
if you
run
going,
out of value, you lose tempo because you're not spending all your mana, and then you fall behind, as we saw happen there for BloodTrail up against blitzchung. Because even though he found the Doctor Boom, at that point it was just too slow. Because while Blastmaster Boom is a fantastic way to get ahead on board, when you're already ahead on board and life total, it locks out the game like that.
Yeah, it really does make it difficult for your opponent. blitzchung taking game number 1 there. We are just going to step away for just a minute while the players get ready for game number 2. And you should go and grab a drink as well, because this one might be a little bit longer.
What's up, Hearthstone fans? Welcome back to another episode of The Curve, where we draw the biggest headlines from this past weekend on Curve. I'm your host, Falcone. Let's do this. Before we get to recapping this past weekend, we have to give a big shout out to Dog, who won the inaugural Masters Tour in Las Vegas. He climbed his way through 12 grueling Swiss rounds and then made it out of his group to face off against the 2017 World Champion, Tom 60229. After a quick 2-0, Dog met Gallon in the finals, and then after 4 games, Dog walked away with the victory to become the first ever Masters Tour champion. In the Asia-Pacific region, Alutemu sits comfortably on top of the A division with an 8-2 record. While he hasn't yet clinched a spot in the playoffs, he is very close. If he can manage to snag 2 more wins next week, he will have a guaranteed spot, as most of his division peers are medaling in the 5-5 range. Division B, on the other hand, is a little less clean cut, so be sure to catch all of the games in the next 2 weeks to see who makes it out. It took until week 5, but Hearthstone Grandmasters no longer has an undefeated player. Finamino entered the weekend a perfect 8-0 with matchups against Silvername and Calento to extend his streak, but it wasn't in the cards. After sneaking by Silvername, Fino fell to Calento 2-0. He now sits as the Grandmasters best at 9-1. It seems like Team Liquid has everything going for them in the Americas region. After claiming the trophy in Las Vegas, Dog came back to Grandmasters and claimed 2 more Ws and the #1 spot in his division. Teammate Frozen also won his 2 games this weekend and now has a tied record with division leader Eddie. In this week's Meta Moment, we're going to highlight the Holy Wrath Paladin. Despite seeing a myriad of rogues this weekend, 3 brave souls, Viper, Eddie, and Raze, brought the Paladin. The archetype went a respectable 4 and 2, both losses to warriors. The wins were all 2-0s over a hunter, a rogue, and a pair of mages. While the deck had clear difficulties against the warrior because of the armor gain, the matchup against the rest of the field was surprisingly consistent. It's hard to say if we'll see an overwhelming amount of paladins in the coming weeks, but it should be noted that this archetype had a lot of good tools to beat the most popular decks this week. The abundance of healing and immunity gave the class time to withstand the aggressive rogue decks, while the numerous AoE clears were easily able to eradicate both big and small minion boards. If you missed any of the Grandmasters action, you can check out the VODs at our YouTube page, youtube.com/Hearthstone Esports. Grandmasters resumes this weekend. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's it for us. We'll see you in the tavern.
We're back with match number 3 of the day, the Warrior Mirror between blitzchung and BloodTrail. blitzchung currently leading 1-0. Pretty, at least I felt, pretty one-sided game, especially from midway till the end. But now both players have switched to their tertiary deck, so things get a little bit more spicy, a little bit more interesting now, because not only is there more late game, there's also way more bombs involved in both players' tertiary lists.
Both players with pretty standard anti-mirror strategies they've gone for here, with, I believe, Elysiana and Geppetto Joybuzz, and actually Barista Lynchen being substituted in for both players. As we see here, BloodTrail getting rid of the Eternium Rover, Town Crier, Warpath, Shield Block, and Brawl. Kind of an interesting set of cards to be getting rid of, because I would argue all the, well, the Rover, the Crier, and the Warpath are all actually pretty decent in the mirror. But the cards he's putting in are undeniably fantastic in the mirror. We saw how good double Mega Assembly was for his opponent, and the extra value that he will be able to get in terms of fatigue, and even just the mid-game through Elysiana, Geppetto Joybuzz, and Barista Lynchen is pretty insane.
Yeah, I really like most of these cards, to the extent that I would actually just put them in a ladder deck I'd play anyway. We've seen some players bring in Bomb Warrior with Geppetto Joybuzz in main deck, and I think that card is just very powerful, mainly because a lot of your cards at 1 mana 1/1 still do pretty good stuff. Move on to blitzchung's list, and he has gone on his tertiary deck, which, you know, copy-paste pretty much what we said, apart from there's the Weapons Project gone, the Dynamatic, 2 Eternium Rovers, and a Warpath as removal. I think overall, I agree with what's been taken out.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I would put blitzchung still slightly ahead. With the double Sephorian Bomber is yet more cards he gets to shuffle in. The 1 copy of Shield Block, I think, is still his biggest detriment in the matchup, because when you have a copy of Archivist Elysiana and the potential to play it twice with Geppetto Joybuzz, if it gets the Elysiana or the Barista Lynchen for 1 mana, you can go for multiple activations with that. I think that drawing cards of Shield Block is very, very powerful just to get you through to your Elysiana stage quicker and rewrite your deck full of bombs with a new suite of very powerful discovered cards.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting for me. Once Elysiana is added to the pool for both players, the timing of Elysiana as not only a provider of value,
it's so
but
huge.
Also what we did not know is she took some classes on the side in bomb diffusion, and the timing of that, we have seen players win and lose games based on that. We saw good times to just say, you know what, yes, I've got, say, 11 cards left in the deck, but 5 of them are bombs. Is it worth it? Is it not? That decision often leads to victory or defeat.
Especially as it's a relatively low tempo play, which you cannot afford to do a lot of the time. But then if you're in the situation where you run out of value, it can be crazy. It can be really, really good to throw down a 9 mana 7/7, as low as the stats may be for the cost.
Yeah, let's get into it. Game number 2. And the BloodTrail just kept hold that Town Crier, as you said, thin in the deck, and this matchup actually isn't as bad as you would make it out to be, even though it's going to be a long one with fatigue. But drawing your cards so you can do the most powerful things early is good. blitzchung, though, has a little bit more to think about, because he does have Dr. Boom Mad Genius, fantastic of course, but there was even a query about, at least for me, of just double Elic.
Yeah.
Coin Elic, beat them up, and try and go that way.
I was definitely considering that. From blitzchung there. I think that the fact that they are both non-mechs makes it a little bit weaker, because it obviously dies to not only the Militia Commanders, but is also relatively weak to Dynamatic.
Yeah.
Especially if you are met with a Militia Commander beforehand. So I can understand the reasoning for it, even though I feel like it wasn't quite so obvious as he may have made it seem.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I think if this was for BloodTrail a Eternium Rover instead of a Town Crier, he would definitely have considered a magnetized Snip Snap. But as it currently stands, you just get more power on the board right now with a Goblin Bomb, Clockwork Goblin.
And again, in this matchup and the way and the way the players build their sort of anti-mirror deck, it does make me laugh in that they build it in a more aggressive way and still include Elysiana and some late kit to make it so it both can go quicker and slower at the same time, which is a very strange way to apply strategy, because normally if you do anything in between, you lose because you're doing neither good enough. But Bomb Warrior just seems to just pull it off somehow. I'm not quite sure how, but I think overall it's one of the most powerful, well-rounded archetypes we've seen in the game for a long time.
I agree. It relies less on extremely powerful combos like Mage and Rogue do, with obviously combining Sorcerer's Apprentice or Conjurer's Calling for the Mage and Spirit of the Shark plus all the Battle Cries and combos for the Rogue. I think Warrior just relies on the fact that it has by far the highest power level of card at the moment, with Dynamatic, Omega Devastator,
consistent.
Dr. Boom, both Dr. Booms. Like, the quality of cards in Warrior at the moment is staggering. Like, it's actually ridiculous how powerful Warrior cards are.
I think it only really, in recent history, has been matched by pre-nerf Rogue, which just had, you know, with Raiding Party and Prep how it was, etc. I think that was on a similar level of just being, all of these cards are nuts.
Insane.
You get to run 30 nuts cards. This is not how the game should be. You should have at least a couple of wonky ones in there. But yeah, getting back to this game, we see the C4 and Bomber drop down, and this is what we were kind of talking about. Like, this may not be the strongest card in the world, but every single turn, both players are going, okay, I do this, and then the next, right, okay, I can match you, and it stays very even going forward. I do like the attack to face, though. I like pushing damage where you can.
Yes, I agree. I'm trying to think of the punishes, because obviously just 1 damage means that this is a pretty nice trade, whereas BloodTrail could have got a very favorable value trade there. But looking at what the options were, there's not much. Like, does blitzchung want to go Warpath? If he does that, I think BloodTrail's pretty happy because he's not playing either of the Dr. Booms.
Yeah, I was actually trying to work out what an exact punish would be, and
there's not much.
I think it would be literally
Ziliax?
The coin. Oh, that wouldn't even do it. Yeah, I actually just can't. Not without Dr. Boom being live for Rush, I just can't even think of a punish.
So just sneaking a little bit of extra damage there for BloodTrail, which works out fantastically. You could just take the trade now if you needed to. But with the Warpath now, it gets even more interesting. We could, of course, see a trade into the Dr. Boom and then Warpath to clear off the majority of his board.
Oh, we could see this.
We could see this.
Face again. He's going to trade. I still wanted to see 10 damage to the noggin.
So did I. I mean,
that's a lot of damage. And then there's Boom to follow up.
Trade. I guess he doesn't have much of an answer to a 7/7 should he die at that point.
True. This is, although not healing BloodTrail, of course, but this is healing him in a roundabout way of actually just soaking up so much damage from these bombs, right? Every bomb that the Goblin takes is just more and more health the BloodTrail gets to keep hold of. Is huge. And again, that's the power of Snip Snap.
And it's also the power of Dr. Boom's plural, as we're going to see it for blitzchung. He gets the combo again of Dr. Boom, Mad Genius, and Blastmaster Boom.
And look at that.
Yeah.
Still a minion there. Oh, okay. He got some damage to the
Snip
face.
Snap's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
BloodTrail now wondering how he can get value in the mid-game out of Barista Lynchin. It obviously synergizes relatively well with Blastmaster Boom, should it stick around for a turn. And I think he would absolutely seize the opportunity to go for an extra Blastmaster Boom. But he doesn't even have that many bombs in the deck, right? I think as it currently stands, it's just a vanilla Dr. Boom of the old school variety.
I think he got one, right? Because he played the Clockwork?
Yeah, so it would just be... Oh, sorry, I meant...
oh, sorry,
old school
right,
Dr. Boom. Yeah. Of the classic.
Yeah, you're right. I was when you said vanilla, I was like, 7/7.
Yeah, sorry. I shouldn't say vanilla Dr. Boom, I should say classic Dr. Boom.
Strawberry Dr. Boom, I don't know. Whatever flavor you like.
Yeah, that definitely makes things less confusing.
I wouldn't have thought you meant just a 7/7. It would have actually improved it for me, at least. But yeah, I think with the Barista, you don't have to rush anything, because with the amount of mechs you also discover, there's so many battle cries available that you're getting value out of that. As long as you don't die, you are getting value from that card at some point.
Yeah, and you're much more likely, I think, to get the value after you go to Geppetto Joy Buzz as well.
Right,
if you get the Clockwork Goblins, which seems to happen a very high amount of the time. That's pretty nuts with the Barista Lynching as well.
This gets, like, turns like this get really weird for me, because I always lean towards, well, Militia Commander the 1-2 maybe, and then just play Harrison. And yes, there's weapons you can kill with Harrison, but I don't like not doing much when my opponent is Dr. Boom and I'm not. But the flip side is Dr. Boom gives the mech's rush, which means the Harrison is much less likely to stick than it would be normally.
Right, and so like BloodTrail needs to think here about how he comes back into this game. And I think if he just plays out minions slowly, one after the other, blitzchung's just going to value trade him with the rush that Dr. Boom affords him. And so I think for BloodTrail, again, similarly to last time, the plan is make the most powerful play you can each turn and hope that's strong enough to tide you through until you find your own Dr. Boom.
Hope it just gets there.
Exactly.
Then.
Because if he keeps blitzchung on not even the back foot, but just even footing to himself, that gives him the time that he needs to get through to to Dr. Boom Mad Genius.
He's just going to go for the kill with the Ziliax, I think.
I don't think this is pretty smart. Ziliax, I think, is much more likely to be very good. Because if he sticks Omega Devastator, or even like turn 10, zap something with Devastator, Ziliax rush it in, like, that's insane. Yeah. That's completely insane.
Yep, that is true. It's a massive heal. I was wondering whether he valued just having Ziliax on an empty board and saying, well, you have to do something now about this. But yeah, the Omega Devastator Ziliax combo is broken. It's one of the most powerful things you can do in the game, at least in my opinion.
I fully agree. And BloodTrail, he finds his own Dr. Boom, which I've got to be honest, I'm very happy about. We have much more of an even game now than we would have had if his Dr. Boom had been right at the bottom of the deck.
It's true. Blitzchung still has a fantastic hand, though. Yeah. Geppetto, especially because Elysiana's already there. Unfortunately, if it was still in the hand, there's a chance he could have drawn it for 1 mana, which would have been huge.
You could still get the Barista Lynching to just go Elysiana Lynching on 10 mana.
Scrap Hand Ziliax.
Yeah, Scrap Hand Ziliax is tempting. Like, Ziliax is obviously the best card out of all of these, but I wonder if because of the synergy between Scrap Hand and Ziliax, he goes for that. Or even just filling out the curve right with Nightmare Amalgam. Oh, no, I guess he wants to go... Yeah, this is better, because I was thinking he wants to fill out the curve with C4 and Bomber. This is a better way to do so he just picks the best card in Ziliax. I think that's the right choice.
Yeah, and also the double benefit of not only putting more bombs in your opponent's deck to put more pressure on in that way, but also putting just beefy minions on the board too. So it's like a double pressure attack, right?
True.
As the minions on board going to potentially be pushing damage, and double bombs is going to be looking pretty good. And I feel like at any point now, unless something goes terribly wrong, blitzchung has relative freedom in when he plays this Elysiana.
Relative. I think he needs to wait until either he's drawn a lot of his deck or BloodTrail shuffles in a lot more bombs.
Oh yeah, I mean more to the fact that because he's keeping on top of the board,
right?
He never has to worry about the Elysiana whack 20 damage to his face for his trouble.
Good. But these points are so interesting in terms of when both players have the boom, and like this reminds me of when I was when I was casting in Las Vegas in the Masters Tour just a couple of weeks ago, and Sir Salty was in a very similar position to where blitzchung was in, where he had way more value than his opponent, but the game still slipped out of his hands, and I spent a lot of time thinking, you know, what did he do wrong to lose out on the value? And I think it comes... A big part of this matchup is knowing when to use your removal cards as removal and knowing when to use your minions as removal. Because I think if you're not careful, you can use all your mechs just to rush in and use them basically as removal cards, and then you're left at the end of the game with Brawl and Warpath and Shield Slam in hand, right? And those put on no pressure. Those can only remove. And so I think as long as the players here are not undervaluing their removal, which is a necessary part of getting the value out of your minions, because you're not just rushing them in as effectively removal spells. I think blitzchung should be in a pretty good spot here, even though he's behind on health.
Yeah, and this is a very strange play and a very, very strange turn from blitzchung. based on the cards that are in hand for him, this does not look like a, I'll say, good play overall, but it's kind of just saying, well, I need to play some of these minions, get the cards out of my hand, and this does a job and doesn't overcommit anything. He still has 2 Omega Devastators, he still has his card draw, he still has 2 Ziliacs, he still has all his big value, but this just puts enough down that I can now maybe build on it the turn after with now maybe Ziliacs goes onto the 2-4 and starts putting pressure on. It's just a weird turn overall with that kind of power level, and he plays a 1-5 and a 1-1.
And it's a weird turn in response from BloodTrail, because we could obviously have seen Mechanical Whelp played on that turn. You rush in the 2-2, and then the 3-1-1s would have cleared up the rest of the board, and he's left with a 7-7 play. He swings the board in his favor, and it means that blitzchung is not going to be getting damage through to face. But I preferred his play, taking it slower, because I think, again, it comes down to he wants to get value with his removal cards first, then follow up with the Mechanical Whelp afterwards to make sure that he eats up some of blitzchung's value first.
Also as well, with the hero power he could see for blitzchung being Blast Shield, that puts him exactly to 7 armor on demand. The 7/7 Mech Dragon doesn't feel so safe after the trade,
exactly, right? That's what I mean.
Like, very nice,
it would be eaten up just by what blitzchung could throw down, whereas by waiting here for BloodTrail, he's trying to kind of bait blitzchung into developing too much stuff early on. He removes that with Warpath and Brawl, then BloodTrail develops his own threats.
Yeah, both players are trying to just put enough onto the board that makes their opponent react, and if they react with even a tiny bit more value than you used, well, you're winning. You know, that's how you win the game. But judging those values is very difficult.
It's a difficult spot now for blitzchung, because all of the minions he can just throw down for tempo have an effect he'd rather use for something else. Like Dynamatic, obviously, removal. Omega Devastator, removal. Even just the Elic, right? Like, he wants to save that for bomb shuffling cards to get more value out of the bombs.
I think Dynamatic is just fine, though. It's the least singly powerful one in this matchup because of the mechs. And BloodTrail, as Dr. Boom now, is only going to be making more mechs, right? So you play a 3-4, you can follow up with the Town Cry if you really want to, still whipping a hero power, and let's be honest, if Ziliacs plus 2 Omega Devastators isn't enough to remove stuff, then Dynamatic wasn't going to get the job done anyway.
Yeah.
Let's go for the Militia Commander, which does surprise me a little bit. Dynamatic does have Rush, so maybe it's just as consistent, but I feel like just the 4 mana deal 5 is actually very powerful.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close. It's super interesting though at this point, because we are like, this is this mid game I feel like is like the wild west of this matchup. Like, it's so difficult to know what's going on, and it feels like there's little established rules as to how it should be played.
Right.
Because early game, we've seen it was the same both matches, right, for these players. You're just tempoing out, you're trying to stay ahead, not fall too far behind. Now when both players have Dr. Boom in play, it's like trying to generate value, trying to generate tempo, trying to prepare for fatigue, trying to shuffle as many bombs in as possible. And how you accomplish all those at once is really difficult.
It feels like you've only got, like, you've only got, say, 100%, right? And you have to divvy out that maximum percentage across these different goals, which means you can't do anything overly well because your other things will suffer. So it's just getting those numbers right and matching it up a little bit better than your opponent is gonna help out a lot here. And now we start to see some of this big removal come into play. The Omega Devastators come down, took away this Mech Whelp, the end result of the Mech Whelp, should I say. And now again, it's just enough power on board to be a problem. And BloodTrail has to work out what he wants to do now in response. Does he have to answer Omega Devastator with his own? Now he's got Geppetto. How does that work out? And also, frankly, when is this Harrison going to hit the board?
Yeah, I don't actually know if I liked that play from BloodTrail. Like, because from
blitzchung?
From BloodTrail.
Okay,
sorry, to play out the mechanical whelp. Because from blitzchung, you kill off there. That was a very easy play. But for BloodTrail there, like, with Warpath in hand, Warpath was not that good on that turn. But I don't think blitzchung is going to let Warpath become much better than that, because he realizes if he just plays out a little bit at a time, BloodTrail will constantly not wanting to be playing out his removal, and instead will, just have to play out his threats, to which blitzchung says, excellent, I had 3 Omega Devastators, I still have 2. You can just clear off everything that the BloodTrail plays.
This is getting tricky now, though, because I feel like blitzchung now has to very heavily consider how to set up Elysiana. Because if you Elysiana in second, although it might sound better in a fatigue world, often doesn't feel better or work out better, because then you play that 9 mana on a low statted minion, and your opponent is drawing fresh new cards, probably already has removal for your minion, and can develop something else, and then you're always that 1 turn behind. The only thing that changes that is you having a much better Elysiana than your opponent, but that's down to fate. You can't really heavily actively impact that.
Yeah, I often like the early Elysiana.
Yeah, me too.
You can get rid of bombs, and you can also just make your deck a lot better. Like if you find Wrench Calibers, Corkron Elites, Grommash Hellscream, like any other weapon, any big minion as well. Like Warrior has a lot of good stuff.
Make a huge impact. Yeah.
Like it gets so weird. Where I think like the best card you can find is basically Wrench Caliber.
Is this the turn? Is this the wiggle room? Shield Slam trade and then just drop Elysiana? Because the problem is blitzchung has slipped back a little bit, which means he isn't ending the turn that far ahead, and BloodTrail's keeping up. And if your opponent keeps up, you can't just drop Elysiana most of the time, because then you fall behind. But now, Shield Slam trade, Elysiana, you leave a 6/6 on a completely empty board. And if the trick as well is, your opponent can't Elysiana in response to yours, because they automatically fall behind.
I think it's close, but I think I like holding on to it here for an extra turn, because I think blitzchung only has 1 bomb in his deck, or he has very few at least. Like, I think this is vastly majority cards, like cards that he put in his deck rather than bombs. And I think the thing is, if you play your Elysiana before your opponent has played many of their bombs at all, you open up the possibility for them to wait a little while for you to draw some of the Elysiana cards, then pop off with the bombs.
Stack,
exactly, and then you take way too much damage. So I think I like blitzchung realizing he's in a good spot anyway. He doesn't have to do anything to change this because he's ahead as it currently stands. And then after BloodTrail realizes he has to play his own cards to keep up, that means the bombs are shuffled in, then Archivist Elysiana comes down.
So now it's all on BloodTrail to get something done here. And you start to see one of the drawbacks of some of these tech choices that are included in this secondary deck is that BloodTrail has Barista, which always finds good targets when you have the time to play it. And there's just been nothing sticking long enough, or not good enough minions to copy, that Barista and Harrison as well in this game have just been sat there for the longest time.
Does BloodTrail have the ability to use his hero cards? Wow.
Wait.
Because of the echo effect of Warpath, he couldn't press it. Was that... Did that make his play wrong then? Like, Delivery Drone is so good, you never want to pass that up.
Well, the problem as well for me is what... Oh, there's a 1-mana Barista. My problem is, what does clearing the board and passing ever do in this matchup? Your opponent just plays more stuff, and you don't have Warpath anymore. Like that. I feel like it's not often you can clear the board with full removal and then just pass on an empty. Like, because look, blitzchung's like, oh, okay, play stuff. He's like, what do you have another Warpath and then another Warpath and so on? It gets really difficult. There is the Shield Slam this turn, which is going to help out a lot, but it just does mean BloodTrail just have to keep reacting, which is very, very scary.
Now blitzchung is starting to get a little bit more of the idea that he can replace his deck. We could even see here... Ooh, it's interesting. We could see Elysiana, then Harrison, in order to replace his deck from bombs and then destroy that weapon. But he probably wants to play Lynchen for that 1 mana rather than Harrison.
So do you think he takes a turn? Because if he doesn't, he's gonna clear the bombs to take 2 more bombs, guaranteed. So I think he might wait a turn now. Again, I
think it was close again.
Yeah, I like getting Elysiana, but if you're gonna Elysiana and then just get 2 more bombs in your deck, But I guess the next question is then, will you get to a Barista it, which means you can Elysiana again, but that'll be 9 mana once more.
The 2 Wrench Calibers as well from
that's
blitzchung
a good reason
right
not to Elysiana.
Yeah, those are pretty nuts actually. And it's crazy to think how many bombs he's had shuffled in so far, and both Wrench Calibers were right at the bottom of his deck. Like, things are not getting any better for BloodTrail now. And he's in that situation you were talking about, picking up the Elysiana. He can't play it.
Right, and he probably won't be able to play it for the whole game now. Very difficult, but I wonder if there was... If it was just that the clear turn with no minions played was the point. We probably need to rewind and say, instead of even clearing the whole board, could you have just played something that made the board look a little bit threatening at least? Because giving blitzchung just a free turn is just so scary. Kaboom goes down, clears most of the board up. Harrison definitely going to help out as well.
Yeah. It's not the best.
It's definitely not.
As he's filling up his card, his hand.
The last one as well.
Yeah, snip snap the last card. But for BloodTrail here, filling up his hand completely is pretty smart, I think. Here, I don't believe it was a misplay to not play one of the 2 drops because he wants to overdraw the bombs from his deck.
And he already has Elysiana, right? So
yes,
it's safe. You're not going to burn Elysiana. You're safe. You can just burn a couple of cards and then go for it. But the problem I've got is the Elysiana second, especially if it's second by a margin, is just not going to be good enough because the turn you play it, you probably just die.
Elysiana somewhat feeling forced here for blitzchung. It's not perfect with the Harrison on board, but it's good enough just so that he can't be dealt too much damage by bombs.
Those first 3 picks weren't half bad.
They were not bad at all.
Oh, Gorobeshi offering.
The Beryllium Nullifier is also pretty nuts. Probably just Boulder Fist, yeah. Rusty Recycler, yeah. This is pretty underwhelming. I think it's actually fair to say for blitzchung. Like, these were just vanilla minions for the most part.
It's alright, he can reroll.
He can have another shot. He can indeed. Even getting the second Dynamatic as well is pretty nuts.
Yeah, it's just not bad, right? And there's a burn of the bomb. Does not go off because of the full hand we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But BloodTrail now, it's just tough, right? There you go. Frothin, Beryllium, Ogre. Yeah, you called him.
It's all right.
Yeah, I think it's solid.
Yeah. None of the premium cards you're looking for in bomb shuffles, charge minions, weapons.
This would be a
but
good
not
time
bad
for
at all.
a master plan.
And most importantly, there's a second Elysiana.
Exactly.
If blitzchung ever feels like this hand, the deck is not good enough for his tastes, he can just do it again. But most importantly, although BloodTrail did well to burn a bomb, he can't exactly keep his hand full all game. Because that involves him not playing stuff, and then he'll die.
He has to play stuff here. It's not a consideration.
Scrambling as a defense, having a 5-1 and a 1-1 left on the board. And blitzchung.
I mean, he's pulled ahead, right? He's BloodTrail is now ahead on board for the first time in what feels like a long time.
Look at this hand, though. It's everything you could ever want in life. And then a re-roll at life.
Sounding pretty good for blitzchung.
It looks pretty good. Even this, even having the Dynamatic to just do 1 damage to the house.
That's fine.
It's fine. The gain of Rush means he can pick off this 1-1 and take his time. blitzchung still has no Mega Assembly. I didn't even notice that until now.
It's just an absurd value.
There's 2 bombs.
As BloodTrail is taking more and more damage from
Not
these
dead.
bombs here. Still just about alive, but if we don't see a play of the Elysiana here from BloodTrail, we can see yet more bombs put into the deck for blitzchung to be drawn on the following turn. BloodTrail now finally actually starting to push his advantage on board. This kind of opens up the facet of blitzchung's arsenal, which he wasn't even exposing himself to before, which is removal cards. blitzchung hasn't even been in a position where his brawls and warpaths have been good so far.
Yeah, and the fact that he doesn't even need to brawl this board just shows you how ahead he is.
That's true.
He still has a Zilliax, still has the Snip Snaps. The Wrench Caliber's going to swing in now to set up potential lethal based on bomb draws. And even if not, the Zilliax next turn, Magnetized, can actually push even more damage.
Yep. This is an out for lethal right now for blitzchung if the bomb were to come off the top for BloodTrail. It happened last game. Why not again for him here?
Oh. There's still a chance. It's low, but it's a chance.
Yeah.
The problem is, even you look at cards like Joybuzz, like Geppetto can't do anything because even if there's minions left in the deck, which I don't know if there are, it just makes it more likely he draws a bomb next.
Yep.
And then again, this is the issue of Elysiana means nothing because if he plays it, he's dead anyway. He might not die to a bomb going off, but he's dead to the blitzchung smacking him in the face. You turn him over and gain him a little bit of armor.
This feels so bad for BloodTrail. Look how terrible this play was.
Well, he's alive on 1 health, right?
Right. Well, yeah.
Technically.
Yes, he is alive on 1 health, technically.
He could... how does he get an extra damage?
Well, it's Mega Assembly
Spring
into
Rocket.
Spring Rocket, yeah.
Or end turn.
That could also do
That
it.
often does the job, especially when you're shuffling in another bomb.
Yeah, it's really just how does he lock out the game now for BlitzChung.
I guess maybe the double recycler is probably just fine. Oh, he doesn't. Yeah, does he need hero power? I guess that's arguable. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I like going in wider rather than
I guess the
making
death
tall.
rattles, yeah.
Yeah, it makes the board sticky.
If anything-
Spellbreaker isn't even an out to kill for the
And
Snips.
if any of these 1/1s even stick, yeah, Ziliak's back, done game.
Yep.
Even Beryllium Nullifier, swan. So very clean. Let's see if BloodTrail's going to go out with a boom. He is. BlitzChung takes the series 2-0. What do you make of this overall? Because I think you were saying you actually preferred BlitzChung's build in the primary deck. Because I feel like in a mirror, the winner of the primary matchup, even outside of mirrors, of course, but it's in such an advantage because you've got to imagine your builds are roughly the same.
Yeah, I always really struggle to figure out what went well for each player in the Bomb Warrior mirrors because it feels like such a kind of like esoteric matchup where it's difficult to see what they did that led to their good situation. I think for BlitzChung, it was just kind of doing nothing spectacular, but everything just kind of right in the matchup, where he's getting the value out of the cards where he can. He's pulling ahead on board as much as possible. And for BloodTrail, again, it was kind of the story of running out of value in the early game, but it was also just the fact that the vast majority of his cards, they weren't mechs, right, so they couldn't rush in, which brings me back to my point of if he had used his removal cards a little bit more aggressively earlier on, it might have meant that later game he had more mechs in his hand to capitalize on the fact that he had gained a clear board and then maybe start to snowball the advantage back in his favor. But I think given the situation he was in where he was behind on board, BlitzChung did a fantastic job of locking out Elysiana from being a possibility to get rid of the bombs, which was the real good realization from BlitzChung, that as long as he keeps pushing the initiative, he's not going to fall behind.
Yeah, and that's a big deal, right? And I think just going on top of what you said is just BlitzChung just putting enough on the board every single turn that BloodTrail could not clear and develop on any given turn that well. It was always, the development after a clear was always a little bit small, which made it easier for BlitzChung to just stay on top turn after turn. But I do believe we have BlitzChung here ready for his interview. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So first off, congratulations on the win. Great job. I just want to ask you overall how comfortable you are with Bomb Warriors. We know your specialization is a little bit more of the lower curve aggro decks, but how are you liking Bomb Warrior at the moment?
Bomb Warrior? I play this deck quite a lot, but you know, I just hate the mirror. So that's the reason why I don't bring Bomb Warrior before, because I don't want to play the mirror.
Okay, so is the mirror something you've practiced a lot? Did you have a decent game plan, did you feel, going into this mirror?
I mean, this is not something you can really practice. Just drop out the bomb, Dr. Bomb on 7, then yeah, that's the matchup.
We know it's not that simple. You're playing down your skill there. As I want to ask you specifically, one of the key points that we were talking about of the matchup at the end there was Archivist Elysiana for you. How tempted were you to play it sooner, or even to play it later? Like, what is the key to playing that card in the later stages of the game?
Which card, sorry?
Archivist Elysiana, to put 10 cards into your deck.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup, I feel like when both sides play the card, and it's not likely that we'll go to the fatigue, because there's always a side just kill the other side. So my strategy was just, you know, trying to draw as fast as I can and give the maximum pressure, and you know, just as long as I draw through my whole deck, then I play it.
Okay, well, good to know. I will try and implement those rules on those odd days. I like queuing Elysiana on ladder. Crazy person. Those days are actually never. But congratulations, blitzchung, on the win. We will let you go and relax and prepare yourself for the other match you've got this weekend.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, you know, I like to see that blitzchung kind of agrees in that you actually just want to play it out when you can and when you get some kind of game from it and do it before your opponent, because you can actually just lock your opponent out of that card completely.
Yeah, I think that's something that I didn't even realize with blitzchung's play. Sorry, it wasn't even necessarily the tempo that he was throwing down on board early on. It was the card draw. He was drawing super aggressively.
He was never short, was he, in his hand?
Right, exactly. And also, when it got down to the end, he'd drawn his whole deck way quicker than BloodTrail had, which was obviously a huge advantage. He could throw down the Elysiana quicker, and it meant, you know, you can say, well, blitzchung has had more mechs. He had more mechs because he drew them. He drew his deck
more cards.
quicker. Yeah.
That is how drawing a deck works often. So that is the Warrior Mirror done for the day. We have some other matchups coming right up. So this is the Asia Pacific Hearthstone Grandmasters. We'll be right back after this.